When Raygun performed at the Olympic Games, her unique approach to breakdancing was pretty divisive. Some loved it, some hated it. It felt like everyone was talking about it. There were claims that Raygun had manipulated the selection process, that she only got to the Olympics because her husband was a judge, and that she got 0 points in the competition on purpose. This led some upset fans to create a petition on change.org, but within days it was taken down for breaking change.org's guidelines against harassment, bullying, or spreading false information, because, well, none of these accusations were true. But it can get more serious than that. In the UK, the spread of false information led to violence when people on social media started making false claims about the identity of someone behind a horrific stabbing. Rioters took to the streets, blocking roads, destroying buildings, and targeting communities they thought were to blame. But again, this outrage wasn't based on facts. It was fueled by misinformation. And experts say misinformation is a growing problem.
And I think the reason for that is the technology that makes it very easy for any of us to be a publisher.
Barbara McQuaid is interested in the ways that misinformation threatens democracy and national security.
Never before in history has it been possible for one person to send a message, a false message, that can reach millions of people in an instant.
Misinformation is playing a big role in US politics, particularly in the lead up to another big election.
I think it's going to be politics in the news every day until the election. I'm sure there will be disinformation in the news.
Disinformation is similar to misinformation. Both terms refer to false information, but the difference is in the intention of the person sharing it. See, misinformation is information that is wrong, but the person sharing it doesn't know that. Disinformation is false information that is deliberately shared to trick or manipulate people. A figure often linked to disinformation is Donald Trump.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
He didn't invent it. Certainly disinformation, propaganda, psyops, all these things have been around for centuries. But Donald Trump has demonstrated that he is willing to lie really about anything to suit his purposes. And he also is someone who takes advantage of what is called the liar's dividend.
The liar's dividend is something that becomes possible in a world with lots of misinformation and disinformation. See, when we all know that politicians can tell lies, and that audio and images and even video can be faked, it becomes possible to point at real news and real facts and call them fake. In other words, if lots of people lie, it becomes easy to call everyone a liar.
And nobody lies like her. She's a liar. She makes up crap.
Because of the existence of false information, he is able to capitalize on this liar's dividend and accuse people of fake news or using falsehoods when in fact things are true.
This makes it even harder for all of us to separate the fact from the fiction. And with US politics overflowing with misinformation, from conspiracy theories about the shooting at Trump's rally to questioning Kamala Harris's claims of having worked at McDonald's, it's a busy time for fact-checkers.
AI has definitely made sort of verifying images, videos, audio, and even who you're speaking to online a lot more difficult.
Matt Martino tracks and investigates misinformation and attempts to expose and debunk fake media, which is becoming more challenging as technology evolves.
In the past, you wouldn't really need to think, am I interacting with a machine here? Now you actually do need to keep that sort of presence of mind.
But AI isn't perfect, and Matt knows what inconsistencies to look out for.
Can you see this guy? You're like, yeah, that looks like a real guy. Not wearing anything here and is like he's bare-chested, but he's got sleeves. This looks like Coca-Cola, but the text is all garbled. You don't often see people drink chips through a straw. Once AI figures out how to do all that stuff, that's the scary part. Will it ever get there? Who knows?
AI is a factor politicians are thinking about when it comes to elections here in Australia.
My government will be introducing legislation into the Parliament.
This video was generated with AI by Senator David Pocock, who wants the government to ban the use of this technology when it comes to elections.
You have someone saying something that they have never said. It should absolutely not be allowed.
Once something proven to be false spreads, it can be hard to stop it.
I don't want to spread misinformation in an interview about misinformation. So I'm like, checking my sources I've written down here.
Kate Fitzgerald studies how false information is created and spreads online.
So I will often see misinformation and conspiracy theories around the COVID-19 vaccines, for example. And there was a fair bit of disinformation around the voice referendum in 2023. For example, we saw some conspiracy theories emerging that the Australian Electoral Commission was giving out pencils because then it made it easier for results to be rubbed out and changed, even though obviously there are a lot of guardrails in place to make sure that nothing like that happens. So there's two ways that I observe in my research that misinformation can be born and spread. So sometimes what happens is that we see these sort of fringe beliefs from just one or two small sort of users who then get amplified by other users and then eventually are picked up by celebrities and politicians, and that's when narratives are really amplified and boosted. But sometimes those phases are sort of skipped, and there are political actors that will post mis and disinformation on their own profile pages.
Kate says social media platforms should take some responsibility too.
I think it depends on the platform, how seriously they take misinformation. Twitter used to be a great space. X is not really taking misinformation seriously at all.
And Elon Musk, since he took over Twitter, has relied on crowdsourcing to correct false information. He is a free speech absolutist, and he thinks the best way to respond to speech is with more speech. And if there's a false claim there, then let other people correct it. There are other platforms that work a little more proactively to remove false information because they have a commitment to public safety and honest discourse.
The federal government is trying to get tech companies to do more to crack down on misinformation and disinformation on their platforms, and plans to give ACMA, Australia's media watchdog, greater powers to hold platforms to account.
We know that disinformation in particular, when spread by rogue states or foreign actors, has the potential to undermine our democracy.
Platforms that breach these laws would have to pay significant fines. And some people are against the idea, saying that stricter laws could have a negative impact on free speech.
But for now, how can we sort the truth from the lies? Well, experts agree that we should think more about the sources behind what we see online.
Sometimes what purports to be a news website is not a news website at all. For example, there's one called the Chicago Chronicle. There is no such thing.
Generally, you should be looking for credible, well-established sources when you're looking for your news. So the ABC is a great one, for example, just to plug my own organisation.
I think it's really important for young people to have a variety of sources when they are reading the news.
If something is huge, has that kind of huge, if true, quality, you should be immediately skeptical about it.
If it is newsworthy, then all of the major news outlets will be reporting something. And so if there's some outlier reporting it and it's significant news, chances are, if it hasn't been repeated elsewhere, it's not something that you ought to rely upon.
If we can't all agree on a certain set of facts, then it's difficult to make decisions en masse as to how we should deal with the issues that face us as a society.